The British seaside is still one of the most popular retirement destinations in the country, but right now many people are leaving quietly without a big announcement. And this isn't the brochure version. This is what the estate agent listings, the NHS data, and the people who've already packed up and gone are actually saying in 2026. Here's what those headline numbers don't tell you. Cornwall is still the second most popular retirement destination in the entire country, according to ONS internal migration data. Devon and Somerset sit right behind it. The southwest coastline is still absorbing retirees from inland Britain every single month. But growth and turnover are two different things. A coastal town can keep attracting new arrivals while a rising number of long-timers quietly list and leave. And in 2026, that backdoor has never been busier. Resale listings in the over 60 bracket are up, properties are sitting longer, and agents on the ground are telling the same story from different directions. That more sellers than usual are cashing out and not looking back. For many longtime coastal retirees, the first turning point isn't financial at all, it's health. And this is the one that catches people completely off guard because nobody is thinking about a cardiac specialist at 62. You think about it at 74. The NHS waiting list in England stood at 7.28 million cases as of May 2026, with a median waiting time of 12.4 weeks, nearly double the 7.7 weeks recorded before the pandemic. That number is national. The coastal picture is bleaker. In parts of Devon, Cornwall, and North Yorkshire, there are zero NHS dental practices accepting new adult patients. None. The average wait to register with an NHS dentist in a rural area is now 2 to 5 years, not weeks. North Devon District Hospital in Barnstaple sits roughly 45 minutes from parts of Bude. The Royal Cornwall Hospital in Truro is further still from large sections of the county. In March 2026, 36.2% of patients across England waited over 4 hours in A&E. And as of May 2026, around 136,700 patients waited over 12 hours from arrival before being seen. Think about what that actually means for someone in their late 70s or 80s. It's not just inconvenient. It's the difference between getting yourself to a specialist or needing someone else to drive you an hour and a half on coastal roads that were not designed for that kind of journey. When the health picture changes, and eventually it does for everyone, being 5 minutes from the beach starts to matter a lot less than being 5 minutes from the right hospital. That realization is the thing that quietly triggers the first conversation with the estate agent. Reason 2, and honestly the most human one on this entire list, is family. People move to the coast at 62 picturing morning walks on the beach and the kind of quiet that 30 years of commuting into a city never gave them. And then a son takes a job in Edinburgh. A daughter has a baby in Manchester. And suddenly, the sea view stops competing with a 2-year-old you only get to see 3 times a year. Try explaining that feeling to someone who hasn't lived it. Watching a grandchild take their first steps through a phone screen because you are 4 hours away in a cottage that felt like the right decision at the time. The move that made complete sense at 62, when the kids were 40 minutes away and Sunday dinners still happened, can feel entirely different at 68 when the family map has redrawn itself and the distance to the nearest grandchild is a full day's travel. This isn't a seaside problem. It would happen in any retirement location anywhere in the country. But it is one of the single biggest reasons agents in these towns cite when a longtime owner finally lists their property. And it has nothing to do with whether the coast delivered on its promise. Sometimes the heart just makes the decision the spreadsheet never could. Reason 3, and this is the one that blindsides people slowly, one bill at a time, until it stops feeling like a small thing, is money. Not the purchase price, the stuff that shows up after you already own it. A Bandy Council tax bill in Cornwall for 2026/27 runs to roughly £2,300 a year for the Cornwall Council portion alone, and it has risen nearly 5% for the second consecutive year. Building insurance on a coastal property costs more than its inland equivalent. Salt air corrodes faster than most buyers price in, flood risk maps extend further than the estate agent's brochure suggests, and older stone and slate stock carries maintenance costs that can run 30 to 40% above what the same square footage demands 20 miles inland. And then there's the insurance problem. In some coastal areas, premiums are climbing even on homes that have never made a single claim, as insurers reprice for flood exposure and coastal erosion risk in ways that are only now showing up on renewal letters. Stack the council tax, the insurance, the maintenance, and the heating bills. Coastal properties are exposed, and exposure costs money. On top of a fixed pension income, and you get retirees sitting at the kitchen table at 70 doing arithmetic they never expected to still be doing in retirement. Reason 4, and this is the one showing up more in 2026 than almost anyone predicted, is the housing market itself. For years, coastal property was almost purely seller's territory. The pandemic race for space pushed prices up by 30%, 40%, more than 50% in some locations between 2019 and 2022. Bidding wars, buyers offering over asking price sight unseen, properties going in days, not anymore. Savills tracked their prime coastal price index falling through all of 2025. Rightmove's May 2026 analysis found that 8 of Britain's 10 most expensive coastal locations fell in value over the year. Part of that is the market correcting. Part of it is the 100% council tax premium on second homes that came into force in April 2025 across more than 200 English local authorities, pushing second homeowners to sell and flooding the market with supply at exactly the moment buyer confidence was already softening. That's not a crash, it's a correction, but it has changed the psychology completely. Longtime owners who watched their equity balloon through the pandemic years are looking at that number now, doing the maths, and deciding this is the moment. Take the gain, move somewhere quieter and cheaper, closer to the family and closer to the hospital, before the correction goes further. It's not panic. For a lot of these people, it is the smartest financial move they've made in a decade. Here's something worth knowing before you assume this is all moving in one direction. A lot of the people leaving the coast aren't going far at all, they're staying within 30 minutes, just moving inland. To a market town with a good hospital, a GP surgery that's actually taking patients, and a road to the motorway that doesn't require an hour on an A road behind a tractor. The Southwest keeps coming up in these conversations as people trade the view for the practical. It's not defeat. It's people who got what they wanted from the coast for 5 or 10 years and are now cashing in the equity to fund a quieter, more connected final chapter, somewhere they can actually reach things. The exodus, if you even want to call it that, isn't people fleeing a failure. It's people who made a decision that made sense at 62 and are making a different one that makes sense at 72. Reason 5, and this is the problem nobody wants to say out loud because it sounds like complaining about success, is the summer. Not the summer itself. The summer is spectacular, and it always will be. It's what the summer has become. Cornwall's most popular coastal towns now see roads that don't function, car parks that are full before 9 in the morning, queues at every bakery, and communities that feel, for 3 solid months of the year, like they've been temporarily replaced by somewhere else entirely. A village that felt peaceful and genuine when you visit it in October can feel completely unrecognizable in August. And in the other direction, for the retirees who found it quieter than expected, the social fabric in coastal towns runs thinner than inland communities because young people leave. They always have. The working age population drifts towards cities and larger towns in search of jobs that don't exist on the seafront. What remains is a community that skews significantly above 65, and as warm and genuine as that community can be, it doesn't replace the social network most people built over 30 years of working life in the place they came from. According to ONS projections, around 2 million adults aged 50 and over are expected to experience frequent loneliness by 2025/26. In a July 2026 Westminster Hall debate on coastal communities, MPs noted that in some coastal constituencies, more than 1 in 10 residents say they are always lonely. Reason 6 is quieter, but it shows up constantly in the conversations people have after they've been there long enough to notice it. These are often properties in conservation areas, in coastal national parks, or in listed buildings, where what you can do with your own home is tightly controlled. Paint colors, extensions, what you park in the drive, the kind of modifications that anywhere else would be a weekend job. That structure is part of what makes these places look the way they do. It's part of what made you fall in love with them. But for a specific type of homeowner, the same structure that attracted them eventually starts to feel less like character and more like constraint. It doesn't bother most people. For some, it's a deal breaker they didn't see coming until they were already 3 years into ownership, and the thing they wanted to do with the property had been declined twice. So is it increasing? Based on what's showing up in estate agent listings and local reporting through the middle of 2026, yes. Turnover is trending upward, not down. More resale properties in the over 60 bracket, longer average days on market, more of those quiet exits without press releases. The coastal towns aren't emptying. New buyers are still arriving to replace the ones who leave, and the total population of these areas is still climbing. But the churn underneath that headline number is real, and it's growing. The coast isn't collapsing. It isn't running out of retirees who want to live there. But behind the numbers, something is changing. More longtime residents are quietly deciding that the next chapter belongs somewhere else. And whether that trend continues will depend less on the coastline itself and more on what NHS access actually looks like in these areas in the years ahead, and on what retirees can realistically afford to maintain on a fixed income as coastal costs keep rising. For anyone genuinely considering this move in 2026, the honest approach isn't to ignore any of this. It's to go in with your eyes open. Visit in January, not July. The community you fall in love with in summer is not the community you will be living in the other 8 months of the year. The seafront cafe, the harbor walk, the busy pub on a Saturday evening. Test all of those in February when the visitors are gone and the town is just itself. Check what the nearest GP surgery's waiting list looks like before you exchange, not after. Find out where the nearest A&E is that handles cardiac and stroke emergencies, and time that drive yourself, not on the sat nav. Actually time it on a weekday morning because that is when it matters. Check whether there is an NHS dental practice within reach that is taking new patients, because 12 million adults in England currently cannot access one. Talk to an insurance broker before you choose the property, not after you've already decided you love it. And be honest with yourself about how far you're willing to be from the people who matter most, because that distance only feels longer when it's cold and dark outside and you can't get on a train. None of that makes the coast a bad decision. For a huge number of people, it is still delivering exactly what it promised, and that is the honest truth. But the version of the coast you'd be buying into in 2026 isn't the same one someone got in 2015. The costs are higher, the NHS is thinner, the market is softer, and the gap between the August version and the February version of these places is wider than most people who made this move were told. The smartest people thinking about it now are the ones doing that maths before they sign, not after.